Next up, we have California 34th Assembly District, Assembly Member Tom Lackey. Carlo Basel is his spokesperson for this evening. Carlo?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Don. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all. We just went through the Chinese New Year. That goes to show you them. I think that's the last of the New Year's.
Oh, okay. Good.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Assemblyman Lackey is, while he's in Sacramento and busy, he's not busy on legislation, because right now we're just getting the ideas. We have like a month period to get together ideas and proposals to make new legislature, which is due by, I think it's February 21st. And so if you guys have any great ideas, send us a message, send me a message, send our office a message, and or call 661-267-7636 and let us know. In the meantime, we're available to help out with all the constituent services. There's still problems going on with the EDD. DMV has seemed to have sorted itself out, so we haven't had too many complaints from them. But if you have any complaints with them or with anybody else, including that wonderful part of California living, which is home insurance, please let our office know. We've had some experience with the Lakes District. They've had some flooding back in October. So we've got a little bit of experience. We expect more because of these rains. And of course, the atmosphere is changing because of the fire maps and just things that keep us busy. And I appreciate all the help. I appreciate all the opportunity to speak and to invite all of you to send in messages or send in phone calls and keep up the dialogue so we can better represent our own district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlo. Does anybody have any questions for Carlo? If you do, in our agenda you can get off of our website, you can pick up his email address there.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Excellent. All right, so obviously the last time we chatted in detail about in November, there's a few things I want to discuss tonight. It's not a particularly long discussion. There are a couple of responses that have been received to public records requests from LA County Public Works. Recently, there's been a legal dispute between a local homeowner and RTG. Quickly review the status of the water line construction, and then look at the state of the grievances with the State Water Resources Control Board. So let's first of all talk about the bonds. How best to put this? In July, I had sent a request for a copy of the extensions to the bonds that were put in place in 2002 by the original owner and developer of the project, and also the bonds themselves. And what I was given were some renewal documents dating back to 2012, 13, and 15, I think. And in the remarks section of that public records request in July, the county said, look, we're attempting to obtain copies of these bonds from the third parties. And I think the third parties are Travelers Insurance, from what I remember. Now, these bonds already exist, so they're not draft, they're not subject to withholding under government code. So in December, I thought, well, they've had plenty of time, 4 or 5 months to go and have a chat to those bondholders and get that information for us to substantiate what they'd actually written in those letters. And I said, could I have a copy of the correspondence, so the emails or the letters that the county has sent to these bondholders for those bonds? And the reply that I got just before the holidays, actually on the day of our last town council meeting, was that they're diligently attempting to determine whether there's any disclosable documents that are responsive to this request. Now, this is kind of unusual because the county's hanging their hat that these things do exist, and it's implausible that they would say that in response to a public records request on a topic that's of such importance to us as a community. and then apparently sit on their bottoms and do nothing. I doubt that we're ever going to get anything disclosed under that PRR, because I doubt that the county has actually made any effort to talk to those bondholders. Then we go to the supervisor's letter that we got on October 4th, which incorporated a letter from the head of Public Works, $4.5 million, building that 21-inch water main from the edge of Red Rover Mine and Sierra Highway to the border of their property. They indicate in their pleadings that they expect that to be completed and transferred over. And miraculously, faced with the prospect of an injunction, RTG and their subcontractors appear to have been able to get the county to verbally agree to doing something that they had previously told everyone that they wouldn't do, which was to find a way to make those connections happen and to figure that out within the next 6 months. Now, on the back of that, the motion to secure the temporary injunction was denied because the need wasn't emergent enough, particularly, I assume, in the light of this magic new way of finding a way to get those water taps to those properties. I think it's a shame that residents locally have had to go to the extent of spending money on lawyers to get these people to honour these agreements, and I doubt that new solution would have been figured out by the county and the developer without that lawsuit in place. The current status of the water main is that, as I mentioned, there's an 8-inch temporary pipe now that's been connected to the 21-inch main. That's going to be going into the property so that they can avoid bringing water trucks in and start using AVEC water to do grading and other work around the project. As I mentioned, they expect the public water system to be transferred to District 37 within 6 months. And I think Acton Town Council should certainly take note here, because along the way, you can see the picture on the bottom right here, there are some 21-inch T connectors. And those T connectors were installed in that water main at the junction of Valley Sage and Juniper Valley Road and Valley Sage and Puritan Mine Road. So, you go back to these environmental documents that indicated that this water system was being sized so that there would be no growth-inducing impacts of it. And here we are looking at T connectors in that water line, which can be attached to at some point in the future, presumably for residential and other development purposes. So I think Acton Town Council, because this sits within their jurisdiction, should be cognizant of this. On the subject of the State Water Quality Board, just before that December 1st deadline, State Water Board confirmed in a letter on November 28th that the petitions for grievance were complete, and they gave various people, including the developer and the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Board, a deadline of January to prepare various documents and submit their comments. A couple of days ago, on the 6th, that extension was extended, and it gave us some insight into what the State Water Board has taken away from those grievance petitions. And the things that they want to look at are whether the local water board evaluated the appropriate scope of potential water quality impacts associated with the project in accordance with its responsibilities under the Port of Cologne Water Quality Control Act, and also whether the local board properly concluded that a subsequent or supplemental environmental impact report was not required for the project in accordance with Title 14, Section 15162 of CEQA. Now, oddly enough, that's really not what the grievance petitions actually raised. They didn't say that the project wasn't approved under CEQA. They actually made it very clear that the project was approved under CEQA, and that the principal issue was that the Los Angeles Water Board was actually approving the project on a pretext that was outside of the scope, was what was in the approved CEQA documents. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. On the 6th of January, Gary Chadwick of the firm of Mitchell Chadwick submitted a response to the State Water Board basically saying the petitions didn't arrive on time because the complete petitions were outside of the 30 days from the February 2022 decision by the local water board. They've already graded the first phase of that project that this permit applies to, so the whole thing is moot, which I would strongly disagree with. And the SEQA issues raised in the petitions are time-barred under the Public Resources Code. Well, that's not true. Again, it's not about, the petitions weren't seeking to change the environmental documents. The SEQA, the grievances were seeking to enforce what's already in those documents. So their response was to seek that the water board to dismiss the grievance hearing, and if they don't dismiss it, to ask for another 60 days so they can get another pile of legal mumbo jumbo in front of the water board and try and get this thing to go away on behalf of the developer. There's something that kind of crossed my desk a couple of weeks ago in mid to late December about this guy called Armon Gabay. This was actually in the LA Times in mid-December, but it gives us an interesting insight. You know, there's a lot of strange things going on with this project. People look at some of the decisions that have been made, some of the things that have been ignored, and kind of scratch their head and say, what the hell's going on? And this, I think, gave some interesting insight into some of the potential problems that the county faces. So this guy, Gabay, was a property developer based in Beverly Hills, and he was found guilty in a federal court of bribing Thomas Shepos, who's a Palmdale-based guy who worked at a fairly high level within the LA County Real Estate Division. And when you read what the Times and the federal government put out in their press releases, Shepos was taking bribes and kickbacks of about $1,000 a month from Gabay. Gabay owned a mall down in Hawthorne, and he was trying to get Shepos to sign the county DPSS into a 10-year lease on the mall so that he could sell it at a significant profit. This, I think, ended up being something that the FBI took a keen interest in. Gabay was sentenced in December to 4 years in a federal prison and fined $1 million, which is about what he offered Shepos when he offered to buy him $1 million home in Northern California. I actually think he put 2 offers in on a property from what I read in the public information. And Shepos is actually due to be sentenced later this month, next week. So he's enjoying his last week of freedom. After pleading guilty to making false statements to the FBI and also filing false tax returns. And it's notable that those 2 counts that he pleaded guilty to carry a sentence of 8 to 10 years in a federal prison. The guy's 72. And Gabay, the guy who actually was putting the bribes out there, only got 4 years. So I think that, you know, it gives us some insight into the challenges within LA County, that instances, some of these senior level personnel within these different departments are quite happy to set aside the norm in order to get personal gain out of things. So in terms of the next steps, I think we should have a chat about a couple of motions. I really do think, in the light of the evasive and vague answers that we've got back to these public records requests, that would help us substantiate points that Public Works are making to the supervisor, which the supervisor is then making to the council. I think we should write to the supervisor and just seek her input as to why we're not getting simple answers to simple questions. And I also think that, you know, what's happened with the State Water Board is that Agua Dulce Town Council has apparently become an interested party. We're getting copied on all this correspondence from the State Water Board about these grievances. And there have been some communications that we've written to the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board earlier this year, voicing our concerns over what's going on, even as recently as October or November, raising concerns about the use of this Cyprus-based letter of credit for their performance bond. And I think that we should consider whether we simply take those letters that we've written to the LA Water Board and combine them into a single letter to go to the State Water Board to express our concerns in support of these grievances before the February 24th deadline. It's not clear to me whether what we've written to the Los Angeles Water Board will be part of the record, and therefore I think that now that we're an interested party, it might behoove us to consider doing that. It's the documents, the letters themselves are already written, they just need to be smashed together and put into a single document and emailed up to them. So I'm happy to open up the floor to discussion on those two topics and any other questions. Don, you are muted.
I apologize for that. You know, it is a new year, so that's my first and only mistake, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Chris, for the report. We appreciate it. Open discussion on what Chris has detailed here. Anybody have any thoughts?
I'm not sure that I see any harm in combining the letters that we have already written. And Chris, you'll have to refresh my memory because we've written so many letters. The letters that we've written, did we indicate we were in support of the grievances? I'm trying to remember.
No, what we initially did was we pointed out to the Regional Water Board that they had improperly interpreted the scope of the approved planning documents, particularly as it relates to the supplemental EIR in 2007. We couldn't do that until we heard what they were going to do, or until we heard what they did in the meeting, and we hadn't really approved the council's participation in that February 11th call, or February 9th meeting, whenever it was. So we wrote that letter. I think we got a reply that we then replied to, and then more recently we wrote a letter that raises concerns over the applicability of the bond and whether it was in the scope of what was agreed at that hearing.
Right.
Okay, so basically just talking about we're combining the letters and hasn't received them yet. Is that the way I hear it?
Yeah, it's not clear to me that those letters, because they came after the meeting on the 9th of February, will be part of the record that gets prepared. And since we have been invited to comment, I think we may wish to take up that invitation and provide our comment.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I have no problem doing that. I think it's probably it would be it's a step we should take.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any comment, or good or bad opinion? All right. So, Chris, you want to put that in the form of a motion so that we?
Yeah. So I'd like to just put two motions out there. One is to write to the supervisor in response to her October 4th letter to us, in light of what we've received back from these public records requests, and just highlight concerns about the lack of supporting evidence for some of the statements that have been made about the bonds.
Okay. All right.
I will second that motion.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor, seconded by Mary. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right.
And then the second motion is related to the State Water Board grievances, and that's that we submit our comments prior to the 24th of February, outlining our concerns over the decision that the Water Board made back in February last year.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a second?
Plus any other salient comments that might come up along the way.
Seconded by, or Candy? Who seconded that?
Catherine, I think.
Catherine. Okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Mary, can you handle that?
I think Chris is going to do the bulk of the work like he usually does.
All right, so you can review it. Make sure that there's not too many S's in the words. Great. Sounds good. All right, thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts. Item following that same old business is, do we have any information that needs to be presented or can be presented here from the community group Save Rural Agua Dulce, also known as AD Neighbors 20? Anybody hear from that group?
I actually did hear from Marcy. Marcy and Glenn could not make the meeting tonight.
Okay.
She sent me a little update, so I'm just going to read what she sent.
Okay.
We are in a bit of a holding pattern with getting our complaint filed. Our attorney has really been deep diving into the details of the project and where things stand, and he keeps uncovering more concerns to use in the filing. He's received some documents from the county and is still waiting on some others. I will post updates to the Facebook group as I get them. And that Facebook group, if anyone wants to join, is Agua Dulce/Acton Concerned Neighbors.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. We're going to move right on to the President's report. The general report is the 2023 meeting format. Discussion regarding whether we continue virtually or in person, or a combination, meaning every other month or once a quarter. Stephanie English brings up a point in regards to the Brown Act, and I don't know if that portion of it does apply to the town council. My concern is, in the past, when we've had live meetings, we've ended up with 2 or 3 people in the audience. And it seems like since we've gone virtual, we've had as many as 90 to 100. And so the exposure, I think the ability for people out here to meet in a virtual format versus in person, we've been able to reach more people, but I think we ought to talk it up and see what everybody feels about these choices. Anybody want to comment?
Yeah, Don, I'd like to comment. Yeah, I think that I agree. I think it's a valid point to make sure that the people that are representing the council are the people that we think are representing the council. Something as simple as all of us being on video, I think, is a good, valid way of proving that we're the ones doing it, not somebody else. So we could add a requirement that the council members are on video for the call to basically establish that we are who we say we are.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts out there?
I'm really curious on the community members who are here in attendance, what your feelings are. Because you all have been, as Don said, it's been helpful to have a whole lot more community participation virtually, and we are thankful for that. How does the community members feel about continuing virtually or going to in person?
Comments, anybody? Yeah, Cap, okay, you're up. I see that hand.
Hi, yeah, personally, I like the option, kind of not micro, but multitask.
Right.
But of course, being the new president of the Women's Club, I would love to see that building used for stuff like this, but I personally do prefer the Zoom meetings.
Okay, well, great. We appreciate that input. Who else? It looks like, okay, yes. And is this Anja? Is
Anya.
this Anya? Is this Martha? Who is this? Someone's there. Okay,
I see Deputy Martinez. Oh, there's Anya. Yeah.
Anya? Yes, Anya. You'd like to go?
Hi, sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. Yeah, just would like to add my comment that for me, having the meeting available virtually, at least for the community members, makes it possible for me to just actually listen and attend. Whereas if it were in person, I probably would not be able to come. And I mean, I would really like to keep the opportunity for at least the community members to attend virtually.
Okay. All right. And I see Deputy Martinez's hand is up there along with his bright, shiny badge.
Thanks, Don. Just what since I've been a part of this for the last 3 years, our attendance online is a lot more than it was in person. I think it does give an opportunity. Otherwise, we were lucky we had 15 people in that building, and Acton's been doing the hybrid. They're in person, and they're casting it online at the same time. And the other day with the storm, some people couldn't get in, but they were able to get in on the Zoom and still be part of the meeting. So I think having maybe a hybrid option might be the way to go to get around some of these things you guys are facing. So that's it.
Well, thank you, Orlando. We appreciate that. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would question whether the Brown Act actually has kept up with technology and all the rest of it. So to the extent that we can continue to do these virtually and perhaps look at the Brown Act and make sure that we, as Cliff suggested, validate our presence in the meeting and potentially do 1 or 2 meetings, as we talked about at the December council meeting in person. So we do a hybrid where we do Zoom, which is more convenient for people to attend, and then we do in person occasionally during the year to meet our obligations under the Brown Act. We may be able to get around it that way.
Okay. As far as time frame wise, I mean, personally, I'm thinking maybe 1 meeting a quarter in person, which would put, January, February virtual, and then March would be in person, and then April, May, and then June in person. We normally go dark during August anyway, so those are my thoughts. What's anybody else's thoughts out there as far as what the particular time frame would be, or what are your thoughts on it? Anybody?
I just want to put my 2 cents in on hybrid meetings.
We should continue.
Well, I think if we've got the right equipment, it works, but most hybrid meetings that I have attended are so challenging because adequate audio and adequate video for effective communication for both the people attending in person and the people attending online, quality is hard. And a lot of times, in theory it's great, but in execution it's really challenging. And I would really like to, if we do in person, I would like to do a hybrid, but I just, at this point, with the limited budget and limited resources that we have, I mean, an effective hybrid meeting isn't going to work, in my mind at this point. But I do kind of think that there is some validity in meeting in person. And just FYI, we did get a formal invitation from the Agua Dulce Women's Club that they would love to have us back at the clubhouse using the meeting. So I appreciate that because it's been, they've got a new building over there. We were there for the December meeting. It's beautiful, and it's a great space to have meetings, community meetings. but I think maybe we need to work with them on trying to come up with the best way to host community meetings in a hybrid way. And I think we can probably work on that, but
I'm definitely open to figuring something out as president.
that's great, Kat. I think that works out the best if we can I kind of like the idea of do an in-person meeting every quarter to start with and see how it goes. If it's just the 7 of us showing up and Deputy Martinez, because I know he's always going to be there. If there's 8 of us in attendance, I'm just not sure that is effective, having the history that we know now with virtual meetings.
Well, and as far as getting the more attendance, I think that's the, I'm all for that. What I'm not for is the ones that make the effort to come there in person, that have something to say or want to listen. I don't think they should be discounted by those that want to Zoom in and have their voice heard. I can't see how we could conduct a meeting and at the same time take time, okay, we've got someone on Zoom here that wants to say something. It's like, to me, that doesn't seem right. And so that's my own, obviously I'm up for, different opinions, and I'm not dead set on the matter. But at this point, I think 2 meetings virtual and then 1 meeting live. I think we ought to give that a try. I don't think we have to decide tonight. Next meeting, I believe we're going to have virtual. So, and that'll give us time to research the Brown Act clause, see where we fall into that, and then we can come together next meeting and take a vote on it, unless somebody feels strong enough to go ahead and put a motion forward at this meeting.
I actually do feel kind of strong enough to put a motion forward. So I'm going to move to continue virtual meetings and have an in-person meeting once every quarter. So the in-person would be March, June, September, and December. And then based on public participation at the in-person meetings, we may revisit that and amend the format going forward.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Chris. Any more discussion on this from the council members?
Yeah, I think we might be overcomplicating it for ourselves by trying to run it the way that Acton runs it. We don't have to do that. And I think I'm a big believer in KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
And I think we have a virtual meeting, people can dial in and join up. And we have an in-person meeting, and there is no virtual meeting to go along with that because of all the IT complexities that surround it. Right. So it's A or B, but not A and B.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%.
Me too.
All right. Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, seconded by Chris. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So that's what it'll be. So our next meeting will be virtual, and then March will be live. Oh, now, okay. We also need to make sure that the Women's Club is available for March. So if we can find that out between now and the next meeting, then we'll know for certain that we're locked in there and things are good. Okay? So, with that being the case, we also sent a letter out to Southern California Edison regarding the PSPS event, which happened October 23rd and 24th. And we have...
okay, I just need to say, we approved that letter, but I never sent the letter. I overlooked it.
Well, they must have gotten the point because they haven't turned our power off since.
That's it. And I kind of think, in light of the fact that we haven't had any PSPS warnings,
right.
I think they probably read our minds.
Okay.
But
if I'm
does anybody think it's necessary to send that letter now?
No.
And I apologize. Fire me.
Well, we're going to actually double your wages. So that's the way we work around here. But I think, and I believe they sent out letters of apology, which was something that Edison normally doesn't do. And basically, it's something where I think that they're beginning to understand how serious it is when all of a sudden you, I don't want to say threaten, but put out a strong warning to people, hey, your power is going to be turned off. So anyway, I'm glad that we haven't had to go through what we went through a couple of years ago as far as the power being shut off. And hopefully the hardening of our power grid has made it to where we're way down the list of communities to disconnect, so to speak. So I think at this point, we need to sit tight, unless anybody else thinks otherwise. Okay? All right, so incoming correspondence.